How to Be a Time Management Master by Tracy. Why do some people have greater success than others? Why do some people have higher incomes than others? They live longer, are in better health, have better careers, and have healthier relationships. They also advance through the ranks more quickly. However, the vast majority of men and women admit that they lead silent lives of desperation. Now, there is one thing that all successful people have in common, regardless of the industry you work in, the field of endeavor you are in, the task you do, or the activity you engage in. They are all effective time managers. They are effective time managers because they understand that managing time also involves managing one's life and one's self. In the hundreds of thousands of memoirs and autobiographies of successful men and women that I have read, I have never come across an instance where the person hadn't been well organized, efficient, valued, and had made good use of their time. Winners and successful people are good time managers. Winners don't. How much do you really want to master effective time management? What level of work are you prepared to put forth? Because self-control is the key to effective time management. The phrase time management is self-discipline in action is probably the best way to explain it. The secret to success is also self-discipline. So let's begin straight now with these 21 fundamental concepts. The first and most crucial concept, the core of time management, the axle around which the wheel of life turns, is goals. What are your goals? What is it that you want to be, or to have, or to do? What is it that you want to accomplish in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? The top 3% in every field have goals. The balance of the population have either very vague goals or no goals at all. So, the question you have to ask yourself is, who am I? Where am I going? What do I want to accomplish? And there are 3 major areas of goals that you have to think about. The first is your personal and your family goals. These are the reasons why you're alive. What goals do you have for your family and for yourself? Put them on paper. Explain them in detail. The second group of objectives you must consider is your business, career, financial, and material objectives. What do you hope to achieve in the outside world? What area do you wish to contribute to? Your self-development goals are the third category of goals that you need to discuss. And in my opinion, the key to achieving anything else is your capacity, willingness, and tenacity in growing yourself. So, here are 3 inquiries you might make. The first inquiry is, what would you do? What goals would you set for yourself, and what profession would you like to have? Or if you recently won $1 million in the lottery? What would you do if you suddenly got $1 million? You have unlimited time and resources, and you may choose to accomplish anything you desire. What would you do differently if you had won $1 million? Keep that in mind and consider it. What would you do if you just discovered that you had 6 months to live? Is the second query. Imagine you had only 6 months to live. What would you give up? What actions would you take? With whom would you spend time? The response to that question is now quite intriguing because it reveals your true values, what is really important to you. And we've discovered that having objectives and activities that are consistent with your values, priorities, and what you value most in life will increase your sense of self-worth and bring you happiness in life. The third query is shown below. What one lofty goal would you dare to pursue if you knew you could succeed? Is the third query. What one thing would you set as a goal for yourself if you were absolutely certain that you could succeed? Because occasionally, the answer to that inquiry will reveal the very purpose for which you were placed on this planet. Objectives must be documented in writing, which brings us to our last point about goals. You have to record them. They must be revised. You need to specify them. You have to rephrase them. The top 1% of successful people in every field have extremely explicit written goals that they carry around with them most of the time, So let's go on to point number 2, which is well-organized action plans, from goals as the foundation of success. The secret to all success, according to a fascinating study or a number of studies that have been conducted, is having well-organized plans of action. In actuality, failure is the result of unplanned activity. Underachievement is a result of impulsive action without proper planning. Lack of planning before taking action leads to frustration, time loss, worry, anxiety, and failure in life. Planned actions are therefore essential. An organized strategy of action is what? If you take your goal and your objective and write out each and every step you must take to achieve those goals, you have an orderly plan of action. You put it all down on paper, make a list of all the different tasks and plans of action, and then put everything together into a plan that you can carry out on a daily basis. You choose which tasks need to be completed first and which ones need to be completed last, and which tasks are more and less critical. In actuality, the capacity to set objectives and make preparations for achieving them is the master skill of success. If all you learned in life, all you learned in school, was the ability to be a continuous goal setter and a continuous planner, day and night planning, organizing, planning, writing, thinking about what you're trying to accomplish, you'll accomplish more in a year or 2 years than most people accomplish in 10 years or an entire lifetime. It has nothing whatever to do, by the way, with your intelligence. It hasn't anything to do with your education. You know, half of the best educated people in the country are working for people who didn't finish high school or didn't finish college. I wrote an article for a major publication not long ago which said that if you do not have clear goals for your life, you are condemned forever to work for those who do. You know, life is really straightforward. Either you are working for your own goals, or you are working toward the ambitions of other people. Very significant. Analysis is the third component of great time management. List everything. In fact, it has been found that making a list before starting any activity or job will increase your productivity by 25% right away. How can a list be created? You create your weekly list on Sunday or the Saturday before. And you always work from a list that you make the night before for each day. Why then do you arrive the night before? The main explanation for this is that, if you compose a list the night before, your subconscious will start working on it while you're asleep. The subconscious will also help you with problems and provide you with insights during the night. You awaken in the morning with perceptions, concepts, feelings, and responses that will make your day more productive. The second reason you use a list is that, in the absence of one, it's comparable like navigating a car without a steering wheel down a city street. You simply drift, and every obstacle, interruption, and event sends you in a different direction. You can run on a track all day long with a list. You use a list for another reason: it allows you to assess your situation. What is more and less significant can be determined. You can identify what needs to be done now and what can wait, be assigned, or be put off. But the most significant justification for utilizing a list is this: that's when you use a list, work your way through it, and check items off as you go. Checking items off a list makes you feel accomplished. Happiness is often defined as the progressive attainment of a noble ideal. That enjoyment comes from successfully doing the small chores required to achieve a noble goal. And the foundation of a successful life is a string of successful days. And working through a list one step at a time is the foundation for a string of productive days. Okay. Setting priorities is the fourth rule for efficient time management. It's interesting how many individuals make plans and have goals, whether they are specific or ambiguous. But prioritizing and deciding what is important and what is not are the two major issues facing people today. And in 1895, an Italian economist by the name of Vilfredo Pareto developed a method for prioritizing that is now known as the Pareto principle. It is known as the 80-20 rule. It states that 20% of your actions will account for 80% of your overall value. Why does this matter? Making a list of the 10 tasks you have to complete today is what it means. You'll discover that 2 of those things are worth more than the sum of the other 3. According to Vilfredo Pareto, the distinction between highly effective persons is that the former work on the vital few versus the trivial many. The difference between the two is that the inconsequential many are handled by ineffectual personnel. They work on enjoyable projects. They focus on tasks that are simple. They work on pleasant, unimportant, and small chores, yet they continue to put off and postpone doing their important tasks. Therefore, the secret to success is to constantly ask yourself, what is the most valuable use of my time right now? What is the best thing you can do with your time right now? I really believe that organizing your life and focusing just on the most worthwhile uses of your time would be sufficient to transform you into a successful, efficient person. Your productivity would increase just by doing that. Your performance, your profitability, your rewards by 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50%. So always before you begin, ask yourself, is this the most important thing I could be doing? Is this my top priority task? Does this give me the highest payoff? Is this the most valuable use of my time? Now here is one simple test with regard to value. Ask yourself in approaching any task, what impact will the accomplishment of this task have on my future? The futurity of decisions is the key to measuring the value. Most people spend as much as 80% of their time dealing with the problems and difficulties of the past, and only 20% dealing with the opportunities of the future. But successful people are always saying, what impact will this have on the future? Future events are always impacted by significant tasks. The present and possibly the past are the only things that unimportant chores will affect. So I ask, what is the best use of my time right now? And how will this affect today, tomorrow, and the days after that? It's one of the most important strategies for maintaining focus on priorities. I am a huge proponent of the 5th major time management principle, which is concentration, concentration, concentration. In my workshops, I frequently get folks who say, well, I never learned how to concentrate. I have trouble focusing. How do I improve my ability to focus? Success depends entirely on one's ability to focus. Actually though, it is impossible for you to accomplish anything worthwhile in life without the ability to concentrate single-mindedly on one thing at a time and stay with it until it's complete. In fact, time and motion studies have shown that if you start a task and you put it down and you come back to it and pick it up and start it and put it down and come back to it and pick it up, that it will take you as much as 500% of the necessary time to do a task. Then if you picked it up and carried it through. Alec McKenzie, a great time management expert, Alec McKenzie, calls this single handling. Once you have made a list of what you have to do, organized your goals, determined the highest and most valuable priority, then pick the most important thing and begin working on it and stay with it until it's finished. People now worry that if they focus solely on one activity until it is accomplished, they won't finish anything else. Regardless of whether it's the most useful task you have, it's the most crucial undertaking you might undertake. It's amazing when you focus and work diligently on a crucial activity since it makes you feel energized and enthusiastic. Your self-esteem increases when you finish a significant endeavor. You feel admirable about yourself and like a winner. Even if you finish low-priority tasks successfully, you won't benefit from your efforts if you keep working on them. When you do something that's boring, you don't feel any excitement or thrill. As a matter of fact, most stress, anxiety, frustration in the world of work today comes from working very hard on irrelevant tasks. Benjamin Trigo said, if it's not worth doing, it's not worth doing right. And I think it was Drucker who said, the very worst thing in the world is to do very well what need not be done at all. So, concentrate single-mindedly on one task at a time. Do first things first and do things one at a time. Now here's a very simple system that you can use for the first 5 points that we've talked about: goals, plans, priorities, analysis, and concentration. It is the ABCDE method. A is the thing that you must do, the top priority. B is the things that you should do, second priority. C is the things it would be nice to do if you got all your A's and B's done. D stands for delegate, and E stands for eliminating. So when you make a list, the first thing you do is you ABC, all your list. A, what you must do. B, what you should do. C, what would be nice to do. And then delegate and eliminate the others. With goals, what you do is this: you make a list of all the things you'd like to accomplish in the next 1 to 5 years. And then you go down the list and write ABC. What do you love to do? What do you like to do? What's not that important? Then you take your goals and you make A1, A2, A3. In other words, your most important, second most important, and third most important. Then you take those goals, you transfer them to another sheet and you make a list of all the things you're gonna have to do to accomplish your goals. Then you ABC the list. And you say, what are the things you have to do? What are the things I should do? What are the things that would be nice to do to accomplish my goals? And then you put those into the goal list and then you structure and schedule what you're going to do and implement. This is called the 6-step method: choose your goals, set priorities, choose your activities and set priorities, and schedule and implement. If you just do that on a day-to-day basis, that alone can make you great success in life. The 6th key to time management is deadlines, and rewards. Now, psychologists have discovered that 85% of the reason that you or I do anything is because of what we expect to happen as a result. We call these consequences or logical consequences. 15% of the reasons are related to what we've been taught, but 85% are due to the outcomes we anticipate. As a result, you structure a specific reward that you'll receive once the activity is completed in order to motivate yourself to complete it when you have a significant assignment to complete. I'll give you an illustration. Making phone calls can often make people feel quite nervous, especially salespeople. They postpone it and delay it as a result. We advise them to treat themselves to something every time they make a call. Coffee should be placed next to the phone. Take a sip of coffee every time you make a phone call. Crush a biscuit into smaller pieces. Treat yourself to a cookie. In other words, teach yourself to have a good result for whatever you do the same way you would teach a puppy. Decide on deadlines. How are deadlines set? First and foremost, when you identify a goal or assignment, set a date for when it will be completed. Alternatively, we set the deadline with plenty of leeways and always strive to finish before the deadline. Inform them that you'll be finished by this date. Make promises to others that your work will be completed. It is a potent method of acting as a forcing system. Something that forces you to stick with it serves as motivation. Since if you don't establish a deadline and give yourself a forcing system, you fall into the trap of what is called Parkinson's law. Now, Parkinson's law says that work expands to fill the time allotted for it. Because if you have 2 hours of work to do and 8 hours of time, you will stretch that work over 8 hours. Parkinson's law also says that work contracts fill the time allotted for it. If you have 8 hours of work to do and because of an emergency, you have to have it done in 2 hours, you will get it done in 2 hours. Highly effective people are always setting tight, stringent disciplined deadlines on themselves, so they get more work done in a short period of time, rather than less work done in a long period of time. Does this make sense? Very, very important. The next principle, number 7, is what is called the time log, which is writing down and keeping track of where your time is going. All effective people know where their time goes. Now let me tell you an interesting principle with regard to time management. It is this: the more important you are, the more successful you are, and the more you tend to measure out your time in minutes. The less successful you are, the more you tend to measure your time in hours, days, and weeks. The average person thinks of terms of morning or afternoon. The above-average person thinks of hours. The successful person thinks for half hour. A very successful person thinks in terms of minutes. They allocate their time carefully. But how can you accomplish it if there is no other way? You need to keep track of how you spend your time. Most people, 60%, 80%, are unaware of how they use their free time. They believe that their time in meetings is excessive. It turns out that they socialize a lot. They believe they work on reports for a long time. It turns out that they talk on the phone a lot. They believe they work really hard and put in a lot of time. It turns out that they waste a lot of time. Therefore, keep a time log or simply a sheet. Additionally, if you have a chance to check your watch, note what time it is. Alternatively, ask someone else to observe what you're doing and give you feedback on how you're using your time. The next thing to consider is whether or not my time management practices are in line with my main objectives, highest priorities, and most lucrative jobs. You'll discover that it isn't. If you don't spend your time working on the things you should be doing, you'll also notice that you feel worried and frustrated. So continue tracking your time, logging it, and evaluating it. What am I doing with my time? Do I devote my time to the things that matter to me? Am I investing my time in activities that will yield a high return? If not, keep tweaking and rearranging your schedule. The time log raises a really intriguing point: self-discipline is essential. You need to exercise self-control, track your time each day, and evaluate it to prevent slacking off again. Procrastination is the subject of the following rule. It is imperative to overcome procrastination, but there are two different types. There are two types of procrastination: constructive and destructive. When you put off accomplishing low-priority tasks, you are engaging in positive procrastination. It occurs when you put off tasks that don't make a significant contribution. Negative procrastination is when you put off doing the things that are considered to be most important. There's an intriguing distinction between their jobs, which are either urgent and must be completed immediately, or important and may wait but have a significant impact on your future. We have an innate propensity to prioritize what is urgent over what is important. Rarely are important things urgent. Furthermore, important jobs are rarely urgent. So you use a very, very easy technique to conquer procrastination. Was created by W. Clement Stone in his early years. He amassed a $500 million fortune. And he lives by this as one of his guiding principles. It's simply this: every morning when you get up, say over and over to yourself, do it now. Do it now. Do it now. I do it now. Do it now. Whenever you have this tendency to procrastinate, program your subconscious mind with this automatic conditioned command: do it now. Do it now. Do it now. The key to overcoming procrastination is to develop a sense of urgency. Be the kind of person who gets things done quickly. Be the kind of person who launches fast on a task. One of the ways to launch fast on a task is to take the task and break it up, what is called salami, slicing it. Slice a piece of salami. You don't try to eat a whole loaf of salami, you just eat it one slice at a time. Take your task and break it up into small pieces and into one piece at a time. Say over and over to yourself, do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Do you know that less than 2% of the population have a sense of urgency? And that there is not an example of a successful person anywhere who does not have a sense of urgency. But if you just develop a sense of urgency when somebody gives you a task, that you get on it and do it fast, that alone will move you into the top ranks in a very short period of time. In a study done amongst 104 chief executive officers 2 years ago, they asked what would be qualities that would put a person on the fast track in their career. You know, the conclusion they came back to with? 2 qualities. Number 1, the ability to set priorities, to choose what was relevant over what was irrelevant. Second on the list was having the ability to do a task quickly. You would stand out from 80 to 90% of the individuals you work with if all you did was set priorities and complete the task quickly. Delegating is the 9th step. Do everything you can to delegate. What does delegation imply today? Delegation is quite easy. This is what it means. Let's assume that your goal is to make $50,000 a year, regardless of what your hourly rate is. 8 hours a day at $25 an hour is what you would earn. Do you understand that? You, therefore, earn $25 per hour. Now, the only way to earn $25 per hour is to put in at least $25 worth of work. And the only way you can work for $25 per hour or more is if you delegate, outsource, or hire someone else to perform anything that can be done by anyone who makes less money per hour than you, such as $20, $15, $10, or $5. Nowadays, productive time is the most priceless resource on the planet. And don't waste your valuable time cleaning the house, getting your car washed, mowing the grass, or dropping off clothes. Spending your valuable time on tasks that you can hire others to complete for $5 or $10 an hour is a waste. Spend your productive time on more expensive and valuable projects. Do everything you can to delegate. In fact, this is the general finding of it, is that if you cannot delegate, if you cannot get other people to do things of lower priority for you, you cannot grow, you cannot develop, you cannot be successful. You may be successful running a shoeshine stand, but that's about the limit of it. Delegation requires one keyword: clarity. Clarity. The reason people don't delegate is because they've delegated and other people have dropped the ball. But the major reason why people don't fulfill the task that you've given to them is because of a lack of clarity. So when you delegate, here are the keys. First of all, think through what you want to be done. Write it down. Second of all, pick the right person to do it. Don't give a major task to an incapable person. Third of all, make it crystal clear what you want done and when you want it done. And finally, examine, review, inspect, and stay on top of it to ensure that everything is completed on schedule. Never count on getting anything done on time. An excellent sign I read many years ago stated that all follow-ups begin with an assumption. Never rely on someone or something being completed on schedule unless you verify it yourself. Okay, on to principle number 10, which is about meetings. Meetings are a vital component of daily life. We communicate with others for 75% of the time we are both inside and outside of our home. It is imperative that we get together. Even while meetings are incredibly efficient uses of time, 50 to 70% of them are ineffective. I read a statistic recently that says the average person spends 3 to 5 years of their life in meetings. The average business person spends 25% of their day in meetings and is wasting more than half of that time. So here are some of the keys to using meetings as an effective business tool. Number 1 is to have a purpose for a meeting. Make sure that it's crystal clear at the beginning what the purpose of the meeting is. If you are the person organizing the meeting when you start the meeting, you say the purpose of this meeting is. And if you are not, when you sit down, you ask the person who is chairing the meeting, what is the purpose of this meeting? You look upon a meeting as an investment. Take the time, the dollar value of the time of each of the people at the table, and look upon it as an investment of that many dollars in time. The best way to save time in meetings is what? It doesn't go at all. Don't attend a meeting if you can avoid it. Get the report on what happened afterward if you don't need to be there. Ensuring there is an agenda at meetings is the second thing we're doing. A list is similar to an agenda. It is a running track. Offer to put together a list or an agenda for the chairman if they don't have one. It's better to have a list than none at all, even if you only write it out and photocopy it. Take care of the most crucial items first. Ask to be excused after you've finished your contribution. Additionally, begin and end the meeting on time. What is the largest meeting time waster right now? In my estimation, it's two things. The meeting goes off track and the conversation becomes irrelevant. Or second of all, people wait until the latecomer shows up. So here's the basic rule with meetings is always assume that the latecomer is not coming at all and start the meetings punctually. Start and stop the meetings at the specified time. Say the meeting will start at 8 o'clock, end at 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, wrap up the meeting. Fair? Okay, that's how you handle meetings. And there's a lot more to it than that. But your skill, your ability to work well in meetings, it's a critical part of good time management. Number 11 is interruptions. The biggest single time wasters in the world of work within the office are interruptions. And the two major types of interruptions are telephone and walk-in visitors, people that just drop in to socialize and talk to you. How do you handle these disruptions then? Let's start by discussing the telephone. The best approach to handle phone interruptions is to keep in mind that, when you were a kid, the phone was where your lover or girlfriend called. Even in modern times, we are still taught to feel compelled to pick up the phone. In fact, it has been proven that you can reach people over the phone that you could never physically reach since people are compelled to answer a ringing phone. You must exercise self-control to keep in mind that if the matter is crucial enough, they will return your call. So, these are some of the things you can do with calls. First, have your calls put on hold. Tell somebody you're going to be in a meeting, you're going to be working. Now, all your calls held for 2 or 3 hours and then phone back all at once. Second of all, with regard to interruptions, if you don't have somebody to hold your calls, do what I do when I work at home, I unplug the telephone. And people say, well, what if it's important? If it's important, they'll call you back. Another thing that you can do if you can't stand unplugging the telephone is put on an answering machine and have the calls captured with an answering machine and then call them back at your own leisure. But don't be a slave to the telephone. The next principle with regard to interruptions is people. Most people are time wasters. That's the basic rule. Most people are time wasters. They waste your time. They waste their own time. They waste other people's time. And you have to be alert to it. So when a person comes in and they want to talk, they drop in without notice. The very fastest way to get rid of a person is to stand up when they walk in. If you stand up and stay standing up, they won't sit down. And you can lead them out by saying, "There's one more thing before you go." And then just say it and lead them to the door, if necessary. And I've had to do this on occasion. A talkative person comes into my office, I get up and I start toward the door and I say I was just leaving and I leave. And the person follows me out and goes on somewhere to bother somebody else, and then I go back into my office. If people call and say, "Have you got a minute?" Say, "No, not right now, could it wait till this afternoon?" You know what they say? They say, "Sure." And 90% of cases, they'll forget why they came in the first place. So control interruptions. Interruptions and the ringing telephone are two major sources of stress in the world of work. Now, another key management principle, in management, in time management, in personal management, this is essential, it's what is called key result areas. In other words, it is the key results that you have been hired to accomplish for your business. Even if you own your own business, you are still subject to key result areas. And the way that you find out your key result areas is you ask yourself this question over and over again. Why am I on the payroll? Why are you on the payroll? What have you been hired to accomplish? Not do, not your tasks and activities, but what results are expected of you. You ask yourself this question: the accomplishment of what results is going to lead to my promotion? How can I increase my income? What outcomes must I obtain in order to receive a pay increase? What outcomes does my employer anticipate from me? What am I supposed to contribute? The next question is, what are my critical results? Another perspective is to keep in mind that every job has a variety of roles. There are also primary functions, secondary functions, and what are referred to as core functions. So, what are the primary responsibilities of your position? What are the aims of your employment? Now, a lot of folks reply, well, I'm not sure. You are aware of the main source of stress in modern American workplaces: people lack expectations, is that right? I estimate that 80 to 90% of people do not know what is expected of them and do not understand why they are employed. Here's a really straightforward method for doing that. Bring a list of everything you do to your employer, and request that they arrange it in order of priority. What is the top answer? What comes in second? What's the third item? What are A, B, and C? He or she will return to you after helping you prioritize your list. You will be astonished, I swear. But why is it so important for you to understand your employment status? It just boils down to the fact that you cannot perform well or superiorly. You cannot be promoted, you cannot get a raise unless you are doing well the key things that your boss has hired you to do. Have you got me on that, or I got you on that? Key result areas are critical and you have to know every single day. In fact, you know something? One of the major sources of frustration in work is to be working very hard on something and being vaguely uneasy because, it's probably not important. So keep clear channels of communication with your boss. And if you supervise other people, have them bring to you a list of everything that they do and you organize it in order of priority. And make it clear to every person what their contribution is expected to be. The next one, number 13, is batching tasks. It's interesting that there is what is called in the world of work a learning curve. The first time you complete a task, you take the longest since you are still learning how to do it, according to a learning curve. It needs less effort the second time. The third time is quicker. The fourth time requires less time. In fact, according to the learning curve theory, repeating the same task frequently throughout time can reduce the amount of time by as much as 80%. Therefore, batching your chores is a crucial time management strategy. What does that imply? It means that if you're gonna make phone calls, make all your phone calls at once. Have your calls held, make them all at once. If you're going to do invoices, do all the invoices at once. If you're going to do correspondence, do all the correspondence at once. If you're gonna read and catch up, read everything at once. It's been found that if you do this on a regular basis, you'll get so much more done by doing it and concentrating on batches of tasks than if you did not. So batch your task whenever you possibly can. Imagine, what most people do is they do a little bit of telephone calls, a little bit of correspondence, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they have no learning curve at all. Each one takes the maximum amount of time. So batch your tasks, put groups of tasks together at once and do them at once. Okay, neatness is the second rule. You encounter individuals frequently, so it's a fascinating thing. My desk is messy, but it's okay, folks in my office tell me as I dash to them. I am familiar with every location. You must realize one thing at this point: people with good recall and intelligence frequently remember where things are. However, it only indicates that they are employing their intellect to counteract the ineffectiveness of neatness. Every single study that has been conducted demonstrates that increasing your workspace's cleanliness and keeping everything off of it save the one thing you're working on will boost your productivity by 20 to 50%. People have a difficult time understanding this. But I have tested it. I've worked with a messy desk, I've worked with a clean desk, and I tell you, I promise you, you will be astonished at the difference it makes. And how do you clean it up? Well, it's very simple. There's a very simple way of cleaning off a desk. It's called the TRAF system. The TRAF system has 4 letters. T stands for toss. Remember that in time management, your wastebasket is your best friend. So toss it out, throw it away. R stands for refer, which means it's not relevant to you, so you refer it to somebody else. A stands for action. And what you do is you take a file folder and you put it into an action folder, so it's out of the way. And F stands for file. File it away, do something with it. But before you file, always ask this question: what would happen if I didn't have this document? What would happen if I never could find this again? And if it's not particularly serious, throw that away, too. Once you've done that TRAF, you've tossed it, referred it, filed it, or put it in an action file. Once you've done that, then you start with your action file and you work through it. Neatness is important. Clean your desk, clean your workplace. Even in the kitchen, you'll find that if you take one thing out and use it, and put it away, and take another thing out, you will get far more done in a short period of time. Now, here's the rule: if you're not using it, put it away. If you're not using it, put it away. Even if you have to take the stuff off your desk and your credenza and put it on the floor, do it. Your briefcase is your workplace if you are on the road. If you're a salesperson, if you're moving around, make sure your briefcase is neat and orderly and has everything that you need and nothing more than you need. Productivity depends on cleanliness. One other thing to note: according to a recent study, 98% of senior executives claimed they would not promote someone who was dirty. That an untidy individual wouldn't be given more responsibility. No matter how much you try to fool yourself, if you're sloppy, others will assume you're ineffective, unreliable, and inept. And even if you do a good job, they still believe it was an accident. Be tidy as a result. What kind of individual would work at a desk like this? Ask yourself as you step back from your workstation and observe it. Take a step back and inspect your car. What sort of individual drives an automobile like this, you ask? Take a look around your office, your briefcase, survey your residence, and inquire as to what type of person works here or resides here. You'll discover that what you receive is clumsy, ineffective, incompetent, chaotic, and so on. Time management depends on neatness. The 15th item is referred to as acquiring chunks of time. Interesting studies have often found that significant work requires large amounts of time to complete. A chunk of time is what? A chunk of time is 60, 90, or 2 hours long. In reality, most important tasks cannot be completed in less than 60 to 90 minutes, according to research. Therefore, when we examine the working methods of successful individuals, highly effective individuals, those who earn the most money, and the ones who graduate or are promoted the most rapidly, you find that they have developed a habit of cutting out blocks of time where they can work without interruption. Now here's an example. There's several examples that you can use. One of the examples and one of the ways that I do it is that I get up early in the morning. Sometimes I get up at 5 a.m. and I'll work for 2 or 3 solid hours. You can get an entire day's work done in 3 uninterrupted hours. As a matter of fact, again, we have found that it's impossible for you to do creative work and administrative work at the same time. If you have creative work to do, reports to do, proposals, anything that requires a sustained period of time to put together, you cannot do it at the desk when the telephone is ringing and people are coming in. You cannot do administrative and creative work together. You have to break them apart. In the office, you do administrative work and you cut away chunks of time for the important stuff that affects your future. One of the things that I do is I come into the office an hour early. I can clear off in 1 hour, I can do half a day's work. Another thing that you can do is stay at the office at lunchtime. Work at your desk at lunchtime, sometimes it's the very best time to work. And by the way, if you work from 12 to 1 and then go out for lunch, you'll find that you can get in anywhere, that you don't have any wait, and that you can get in and out and back to work quickly. A third is staying late. Sometimes just working from 5 to 7, you'll do an entire day's worth of work. By the way, with regard to travel, I travel a lot, and more people travel by air. If you are well organized and have all of your work in your briefcase, 1 uninterrupted hour on a plane is equivalent to 3 hours in your office. So if you're planning to travel, make sure you bring the job you need to do so that you can work, especially if you're a workhorse after you board the plane. I make an effort to always choose a window seat. You can lose yourself in your job when you sit near to a window. You are not bothered by anyone, and nobody is stepping on you. However, you can accomplish a ton of work while flying. In reality, this course that we are discussing today was completed in large part on airplanes. The 16th tip is to put what we call transition time. Remember this, is that you will always be paid in life for the value of your contribution. And if you want to earn more, you must learn more. And the most successful people are those who are continually taking in new information, continually learning more, and continually taking every opportunity to keep current with their profession and to advance their knowledge. In fact, the knowledge in every single field today is doubling every 5 to 7 years, which means that whatever you're doing in order to stay even, your knowledge has to double every 5 to 7 years. Now, it's simple to do this. The basic rule is this: you should or you must spend an hour every day investing in your own mind, investing in yourself. You must take an hour every day and read and study and take notes. If you're doing less than an hour a day, you're falling behind. You will be on the side of the angels if you practice for 2 hours each day. Here are a few methods through which you might obtain this additional time for studying, working, and developing personally. The first and most crucial factor is getting to and from work by car. The typical motorist in today's world logs 12 to 25,000 miles annually if they have a car. That translates to 500 to 1,000 hours per year. Of course, if you're on the roads in Los Angeles, it's from 1,500 to 2,000. That equates to 12 to 25 full-time, 40-hour work weeks. That equates to 3 to 6 months worth of work weeks. That equates to 1 to 2 semesters of college. Knowing that people who watch videos like this are often the cream of any organization or society, it is obvious that you are not the average person. The typical person spends their whole sitting time listening to the radio. Simply by listening to audio cassettes while traveling to and from work or running errands, you can become one of the most knowledgeable persons in your field. Coffee breaks are now a crucial component of transition time. You know, the typical person takes 2 20-minute coffee breaks each day for a total of 40 minutes. 200 minutes are equal to 40 minutes every day multiplied by 5. 10,000 minutes is 200 minutes multiplied by 50 weeks in a year. 1,000 minutes equals 166 hours. 166 hours is over 4 full 40-hour weeks. Now what does that mean to you? It means that if you just decide that you're gonna read on a particular subject at your coffee breaks for the next year, you will be an expert on that subject before the year's out. Just when you sit down with coffee, make sure that you have something to read, whether it's time management or goal setting, your personal communications, or your profession. If you wanted to be an outstanding salesperson, if you just read on your coffee breaks 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon and applied what you learned, you could double your income in less than a year. And most people sit there in the coffee breaks and they read the sports page. And they don't realize that their life is passing them by. Well, another key element of truth is the transition time is lunch times. The average person takes an hour a day. An hour a day times 250 working days a year is 250 hours. 250 hours is 6 full weeks of time that you spend eating lunch. If you just read at your lunchtime something that will help you grow and advance in your career. If you did nothing but coffee breaks and lunchtime, you'd become one of the best educated people in society within 3 to 5 years. And you know what the average person does? They waste this time. Another important part of transition time, by the way, if you read magazines instead of carrying magazines, what you do is you read a magazine, tear out all the articles, put it in a file, and whenever you're traveling, keep that file with you. You're sitting waiting for something. You're waiting in a waiting room. You're taking a trip. You have appointments that are cancelled. Just pull out your file and keep current. Remember, keep taking in more information. Use those that are called gifts of time. These are gifts of time that are given to us by God. And we can do anything we want with them. But high-performing human beings use those gifts of time as though they were precious. And low-performing human beings do not. Which do you want to be? Okay, the next is what we call the telephone. You know, the telephone is interesting. The telephone is an essential part of our lives. But as we said a little bit earlier, we are conditioned from our teenage years to look upon the telephone as a social tool. It's something that we look forward to getting onto because we associate it with romance and fun and communication with people that are important to us. As adults, however, we have to change our thinking 180 degrees. We have to realize a telephone is a business tool. The telephone is a business tool. It's like a computer. It's like a typewriter. It's like a photocopier. It may have other uses, but it's a business tool. So here's the rule with using the telephone: get on and get off fast. See how fast you can get on and off the phone. Control your telephone calls as we said before. Let other people, actually, let your telephone calls get batched. So that you can call them back and control the calls. Call back at their lunch times. Call back at the end of the day. Call back so you control the time. Now, when somebody calls you and you take the call, here's the key question: always ask, "What can I do for you?" They'll always have a tendency to say, "Hi. How are you doing? How are things going? How's the weather out there?" You say, "Fine, what can I do for you?" And get straight to the point of the phone call. "How can I help you?" is another thing you might say. To be quite clear, though, this is a business call. If you're going to be making phone calls, think of them as virtual meetings. You create an agenda for the meeting as your next step. If you frequently converse with someone, many people recommend keeping a file on them. Additionally, pull out the paperwork and start working on your agenda when you consider calling that person. Down the agenda you go. You conclude the agenda by saying, "Thank you so much. Now I'll let you go. I understand that you are busy, please end the call." What should you say to chatty people? You say, "Excuse me, I've got another call coming." To talkative people, "I must get moving." You can try saying, "My boss is phoning me," if that doesn't work. If that doesn't work, pretend that the phone line has been cut off and abruptly end the call. The person is probably so used to getting cut off by other people that they won't even notice it. Always keep in mind that individuals waste time. And the vast majority of people don't have any objectives. No priorities exist for them. They have no ideas. They don't worry about being prosperous. And they believe you to be the same. They believe that because their time is worthless, your time is likewise worthless. Be really aware of that. One other thing, by the way, take thorough notes during phone meetings. The power is on the side of the person with the greatest notes, I overheard a very intelligent man say. Because I made a telephone agreement without documenting it, I have lost thousands of dollars. You agreed to something else, the person has said to me again. They had it recorded in their files, and I was unable to object. Therefore, write while on the phone. One last recommendation is to always have a pen, a pencil, and a pad. Never answer the phone if you don't have a pen in your hand. The most amazing thing I hear over and over again is when I call people. And I try to leave a message, their voice drops and they say, oh, just a minute, I'll go and see if I can find a pencil. And the phone goes clunk and the person goes away and they come back and they say, oh, geez, this pen won't work, just a minute, and the phone goes clunk and they go away again. If a person ever answers the phone without a pen in their hand, you know this person is going nowhere in life. It's as simple as that. My own personal opinion, of course. The next key is punctuality. One of the most important things you can get in terms of reputation is a reputation for being punctual, which means being on time. My friend Joel Weldon says it very well. He says, if you're not early, you're late. That there's only 1 minute period in any appointment when you're exactly on time. And so if you aren't there early, you're there late. Less than 5% of people in America are punctual. Less than 5% of the population is punctual, and those people stand out. As a matter of fact, if you want to stand out from the average person, all you have to do is develop a reputation for punctuality. Pretty soon, people say, boy, he or she sure is punctual. He or she sure is punctual. Let me tell you something about punctual people. If you ask a person, what do you think about so-and-so, who is very punctual? They will say, I think this person is more competent, more reliable, more dependable, more intelligent, more valuable, and more likely to be promoted and given greater responsibilities than the person who is late all the time. The person who is late all the time is considered unreliable, sloppy, undisciplined, a poor time manager, and not capable of greater responsibilities. Why do individuals frequently arrive late? 2 factors. One is that they are unaware of its significance. They never consider the fact that showing up late for an appointment is rude to the person who has agreed to see you there. You can forget if you work in sales and are consistently late for appointments. The other day, I interviewed a candidate for a position that would pay a lot of money. She arrived 15 minutes late for a scheduled appointment. The general guideline is that you should never hire someone who arrives late for an interview, even if they are only 15 minutes late for the initial appointment. Someone who is persistently late for interviews will send you a flash. It's a signal that this person is unreliable, incompetent, undependable. And if you let them get away with it, you're in for trouble. I don't know, I'm just passing on that. Punctuality. Coming back to that. Vince Lombardi of the Green Bay Packers had what he called Lombardi time, which meant 15 minutes early. If he said to his team, be here, Lombardi time, that meant being there 15 minutes early. Develop a reputation for being punctual. And finally, one other thing is that if you are superior and you have subordinates or you have people working for you, reporting to you, don't keep them waiting. If you agree to see them at 3 o'clock, don't keep them out there, spinning their wheels, standing around. It's one of the worst insults that you can do to people. And if I could just touch on communications once more, one of the greatest time wasters in life is lack of concentration, distraction, exhaustion, and not paying attention. This is separate from the topics we're discussing. How many times have you engaged in a conversation with someone and both of you promised to do something, only for one of you to completely forget about it, fail to remember it, or simply fail to pay attention? Although it cost a great deal of money, it wasn't completed. How frequently does that occur to you? A strong time management tool is paying close attention. If a visitor comes to see you, cut off all phone calls, close the door, clear your desk and concentrate single-mindedly on a person. 10 minutes of concentrated conversation will clear up more than 1 hour of interrupted conversation. Pay attention. Take notes. Now, number 19 is called work simplification. Do you know that at the turn of the century in United States, it took 50% of the American population to feed working on the farms to feed the other 50% living in the cities? Today, it takes less than 3% of the farm population to feed the other 97% in the cities and half of the world besides. The reason for that is because of mechanization, systematization, and simplification of the agricultural process. As a matter of fact, every great advance that has been made since the Industrial Revolution has been towards simplification. Always look for ways to complete work more quickly, easily, cheaply, quickly, or better. Always look for ways to complete them more quickly. In actuality, finding methods to improve current processes has repeatedly helped people advance their careers. Here are a few other suggestions that I've found to be quite helpful in getting more done quickly. Here are the 6 or 7 main points. If you want to do more in a specific amount of time or overall, you can perform one of the following: you can put in more hours. In other words, you can put in more time at the office. However, that's not a good idea. Because your productivity starts to drop off and you start to make mistakes, which you have to come back and correct and so on. Number 2 is you can work faster. You can get more done within a short period of time. Number 3 is you can do fewer things, but do more important things. Do higher payoff tasks in the same period of time to increase your productivity. Number 4 is you can do things that you are better at. One of the qualities of leaders is that leaders, exceptional people, are always concentrating their time on doing what they do best. So ask yourself, what is it that I'm the best at? What is that I do the easiest? You can sometimes dramatically increase your productivity simply by concentrating on where you're good. Another thing that you can do is make fewer mistakes. You know, there's an old saying that there's never enough time to do it right, but there's always enough time to do it over. If you make fewer mistakes, you will get far more done within a certain time period. And the last thing which many people miss is do things together. Teamwork, putting a group of people together to work on a complex project, can sometimes get the project done in 2 hours, whereas would take another individual 8 or 9 or 10 hours. So do things together. Work in teams with other people. Those are the keys. Work simplification means always finding faster, easier, newer, quicker, cheaper, more efficient ways to do what you're doing. Number 20 is the magic word. The magic word in time management is no. Learn to say no to activities, tasks, responsibilities, and obligations that do not contribute to the most important goals that you have set for yourself. The word no is magic. And the place and the time to use the word no are early and often. It's like the wastebasket. When sorting mail, the trash can is your best buddy. According to a recent research, the average person spends 8 months of their lifetime sorting and looking through junk mail. It's amazing how much of your life is consumed by people who ask you to do things, and that you subsequently fulfill out of a sense of duty. As I've already told you, most individuals don't respect their time, which means they don't appreciate yours. Now, how do you respond to a request for assistance from someone you know, like, and respect? Simply put, when you agree to do a task, serve on a committee, or take on a project, ask especially if you have it's not if your boss, but especially you have control as say, let me think about it and get back to you. There's an old saying that delay is the cruelest form of denial. If they press you for a decision, say, I cannot make a decision now, I have to think about it. And after you've thought about it for 24 hours, call them back and say, I've thought about it, I simply don't have the time. But thank you very much for thinking about me, and get on with the rest of your life. You know what Nancy Reagan says? Nancy Reagan says, just say no. Now, in time management, the word no is one of the most powerful of all words. It'll save you hours, weeks, and months of working on projects that contribute nothing to your goals. And finally, number 21 is balance. In all of the time management, you have to ask this question is, what is the purpose of managing your time, or what is the purpose of getting an extra 2 or 3 hours a day? And the purpose is to enhance and improve the quality of your life. And the most important things in a person's life are their health, their peace of mind, and your relationships. In fact, the quality of your relationships is the true measure of your quality of life. So take time to invest time in your relationships. Spend time with the people who are close to you, your spouse, your loved ones, your parents, your children. Take time because that's what life is. Life is managing your time so that you can do the things that are most important to you. We start off in life thinking, boy, if I'm really successful at my job, then I'll be able to do all of these things for myself and my family. And what happens is we lose sight of that goal and we become totally preoccupied with the job. Do you have any idea how much time the typical American working parent spends speaking to their child these days? Daily, for 30 seconds. Do you have any idea how much time the typical couple spends communicating intimately? According to recent studies, 4 minutes. Quite crucial. You must be certain about your priorities and ideals if you wish to succeed in life. The people you love and the ones who love you must be your ultimate values. They must assist you. They have to be your power. They must be your calming influence. Your emotional and spiritual growth must be among them. They must be the final piece of who you are as a person. Therefore, if you're using all these time management techniques, remember that the purpose of using these time management techniques is to enhance the overall quality of your life. What would you do if you knew you only had 6 months to live? Ask again. If you only had 6 months to live, what would you do? With whom would you spend time? How about a destination? What actions would you take? What could be crucial? What would be of no consequence? You'll have the propensity to keep your life in balance and everything in proportion if you constantly ask that question. Please allow me to briefly summarize by stating 2 or 3 points. Goals are crucial to time management success. Setting goals, putting them in writing, and creating well-organized plans to achieve them are essential. Setting priorities is the key to these well-organized strategies. Likewise, decide what matters most and what doesn't. And constantly focus on making the most of your time. To focus on making the best use of your time, stick with the activity until it is accomplished. Keep going without becoming sidetracked or distracted. Keep going. Hammer away at your most vital duties until they are accomplished. Develop that sense of urgency. Last. Move swiftly. Act right away. A quick tempo is necessary for success. Fast tempo is synonymous with vitality, enjoyment, enthusiasm, and self-worth. Therefore, be very clear about what you want to do and the processes. And begin taking those actions, doing something each day to advance your most significant objectives in life. And if you follow through with that, you will be a superb time manager, a superb personal manager, and a superb life manager. You'll lead a wonderful, wonderful life. Thank you, and subscribe for more video content like this.